Welcome to the final presentations for the 2014 student teaching cohort of the Pennsylvania State University Agriculture and Extension Education program. We're pleased to learn about how Allison Hoover has prepared to make an impact, not an impression, on her students during her internships, both at Wellsboro with Miss Melanie Bernst and in Costa Rica. Allison?
Thank you everyone for being here. As Dr. Foster said, my name is Allison Hoover, and I'm a state college local and excited to be graduating this coming spring in 2014. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my experiences at Penn State, opportunities I feel prepared me for student teaching in the spring, and for an opportunity to be an educator as a lifelong career. So when we look at aspirations of an educator, think about things that an agricultural educator looks at in their philosophy statement. Philosophy is a foundation of reasons for belief or purposes behind decision-making skills. And this is a diagram to demonstrate my philosophy. You all have a copy of my philosophy statement, the complete statement, in your handouts. It's page 1 and 2. And you can see the diagram on page 2, which kind of demonstrates my interested content areas, although I believe agricultural education, agri-science education includes many different content areas. Some of my strengths that I would definitely focus on in an agricultural education program are food science, natural resource management, international agriculture, leadership, and agroecology. And part of the three-circle model is not only integration of those components that we're familiar with, supervised agricultural experience, classroom laboratory instruction, and FFA, but I added a fourth circle for my philosophy because I believe that we should use very innovative methods that include technology, problem-based learning, and service learning opportunities to just really emphasize those three circles and create a more beneficial program for students. And then just coming from a personal background, believing that global competency is very important for youth today, especially in agriculture, because of the needs for our youth to be prepared to feed the world sustainably and provide food and fiber as our population continues to grow. Global competency and cultural competency are very significant components of my philosophy statement. And you can see that that doesn't just mean a global perspective, but it starts with the individual student and their perspective, moving to their family, their community, and then to their state, country, and world. So model program curriculum is how an individual would go through their high school experience, incorporating an agricultural education or career and technical focus with their other core academic standards. The hours requirement reflects the state requirement for being a completer, a program completer in agricultural education. And so this model you also have in your handout. You can see the diversity. This is specifically for an agri-science curriculum program, which would include an intro to ag class, as you can see in your handout, moving into either an animal science or plant science, or a diversity of the two, along with, of course, SAE and FFA in that model. And of course, the second component of the three-circle model is community involvement, which takes part through, community involvement takes a place in all aspects of the three-circle model, as is seen in my global competency aspect of the philosophy. And as I mentioned, it is very significant community integration, not only methods for that three-circle model, but just to build a globally competent student. So community service and service learning are opportunities that I think will be really beneficial in any agricultural education program to complement our students' experience. Agricultural literacy and community-based units of instruction are very beneficial to increase community engagement in an agricultural program, and so those would be something I would focus on as well. And just as an example of how I would integrate the community, agricultural education has a system of an advisory board or advisory committee, and that would be a reflection of community support agencies and programs that would support the program and give input to it. So this is a step process of just getting approval from my board that I've included here, which is also included in my advisory board approval, which is in one of my nifty binders over here. And then FFA integration. I have a pretty personal and strong background in FFA, and it's been a very positive influence in my life. It's actually because of my involvement in FFA that I've decided to pursue this major and a career in agricultural education. And so I strongly believe in FFA as a component of the three-circle model in an agricultural education program. So I would absolutely encourage 100% membership, which is made a lot easier now, specifically in Pennsylvania, through the affiliation, the passing of affiliation fees for programs and membership. And while I don't believe that there should be a forcing of students to participate in something they're not interested in, FFA should be a combination of enthusiasm and energy on behalf of the advisor, myself, to promote the opportunities of FFA, and also just student motivation and just self-led opportunities and leadership in FFA. But it would require the students to participate in one career development event per year because of the opportunities that relate it to the course instruction, which is part of my programs as well. And then I would probably initially start out in an agricultural program focusing on CDE strengths that I have, which are food science, agri-science, public speaking, and wildlife, for example. So starting out a program, those would be some strengths. State leadership events and opportunities are really significant as well, I think, in providing a more well-rounded student. So I would encourage 100% participation in state conferences and conventions if the funding exists. Encouraging proficiency awards and degrees as well as the programs that stem out of those. And then, as is also included in one of my binders from a previous course, I have a program of activities implementation plan that elaborates how a program of activities would include FFA activities throughout the year, budgeting, etc., and also a chapter officer selection plan. And a second component of the three-circle model, supervised agricultural experience, is extremely important in agricultural education because it provides an opportunity for career development in addition to just focusing on specific interests of a course that a student may have. So I would have a 100% SAE requirement for all of my students in my agricultural education program. But it would be very student-driven. They would pick their career interest, and they would also be required to self-evaluate themselves, which is seen in my SAE success program plan, which is also included in some of my previous coursework. And then just constant communication, which would be much easier with a larger program if there were two educators. So if I were to be a one educator program, part of a one educator program, this would be something that would probably occur 2 times a year in terms of visits and communicating with parents and students. But like I said, that's all included in the SAE integration program. And a comprehensive lab management plan. I do not have much experience working in an agricultural mechanics lab in my ag education program, but believe it's vitally important in reflecting the industry and preparing our students for entering into the industry to be engaged in these practical experiential opportunities. So my comprehensive lab integration plan is very focused on safety and prevention, which includes parent and student contracts and a 100% quiz requirement on the safety aspects of a certain unit before the students enter into the shop for that unit. And this also includes food science or biotechnology labs because there are a lot of safety hazards in those as well that students would need to be prepared to enter into. And just to demonstrate another aspect of my preparation as an educator, the lab experience that we've had this semester was extremely beneficial, and I was able to demonstrate even further some qualities of Rosenstein at first. As you can see here, enthusiasm is the quality of Rosenstein at first, and effective teaching that I demonstrated, I think, more successfully than others. So you can see this in a short clip I have.
It allows you to use your awesome creativity. So like, what folders and stuff like that? Yes, we fold it. Whichever style you want actually. You got your name tag, you fold whichever way you want, and then on the inside of your name tag, there's the handprint on the outside.
So again, enthusiasm is one of the major qualities that I think was exemplified in my experience as a student in other coursework, and also just in lab and in teaching experiences this semester. And of course, in any agricultural education program, you need to have a classroom management focus. I previously believed I was really competent in classroom management procedures because I have a lot of summer daycare, summer camp counselor experience, and I was a state FFA officer, so I thought I was good at like controlling groups, but I was able to experience some classroom management challenges this semester in some of our role playing. So it challenged me to think a little bit more about what that would look like in my program. But I do have a very strong philosophy belief in psychology as a basis for education, and so positive reinforcement is always a better proponent to creating a learning atmosphere than punishment. So one of my first, as you can see over here, consequences is actually not a consequence, it's an opportunity or a positive consequence, which is that lifelong learning and growth occurs from meeting expectations. And then I list some of the negative consequences of not following the expectations and procedures that are outlined. The number 1 and number 2 reflect a level 1 warning at my cooperating center, and then a level 2 warning is listed as an extreme or a severe discipline, my classroom consequences table. Expectations on the left, I believe, again, that it's a collaborative environment for students to be dedicated to the experience and teachers to be motivated and enthusiastic. So that is just an expectation that everyone's working towards that awesome experience. You can see the steps of the expectations throughout the day, and also as students come in on their procedures, they want to be energized, focused, receive their materials, focus on their bell work, and then just maximize their time in the classroom. And finally, as part of preparing for an agricultural education, I think that it's very important to advocate to diverse populations. Excuse me. Agricultural education is more than just agricultural education, it's agri-science education, and so we need to always be advocating science as a career development opportunity in this. And I really just think that the slogan or marketing plan for the College of Agricultural Sciences here at Penn State, think again, or think outside the barn, is something that's really positive in reflecting agri-science education. So I'll just show a very short clip of my recruitment video that I produced with a team this semester.
Agricultural education is science, hands-on experience, environmental topics, technology, and everything in between. Get your hands dirty in a barn, in the lab, or in the shop. Take classes geared toward what you want to do, and be engaged in almost anything but sitting through another PowerPoint. See the function of each part of a cow's stomach by actually dissecting a digestive tract. Investigate how an engine works by tearing a lawn tractor apart. Visualize how bacteria are used to produce your food by conducting experiments in the science lab. Is it more than you expected? This is just the beginning.
So that's just a short clip from this video that I think is able to market these diverse populations that I believe in for agri-science programs. Now moving forward, in preparing for a lifelong career as an educator, I think it's very significant to look past upon the experiences and opportunities we've had. I feel very blessed to have been able to participate in a lot of opportunities at Penn State and in other settings that I think are very beneficial in providing for a future career in agricultural education. And of course, the courses at Penn State in the agricultural education program are a very significant part of that. So starting as a freshman, fall semester, I took Ag Ed 100. And I think that just laid the groundwork for what agricultural education would look like. Moving into some content courses, which included environmental education through SciEd and some of the national curriculum courses, I think those are very significant for an experiential learning opportunity and seeing what it looks like to be out in the field. Content courses is an area which would include soils, animal science, and some courses I took this past summer in a study abroad experience, which I'll mention. But that's also something that I don't feel I took as much opportunity from during my time at Penn State, because I tried to maximize my academic program by taking several minors, and I wasn't able to really focus on those technical courses that this program is designed to complement our students with in preparing to teach many different agricultural content areas. But as I mentioned, educational psychology is something I believe is foundational to the teaching methods of agriculture, which is at the end of my team, but that's a course I really appreciated. Moving into Ag Ed 311 and getting a new perspective on FFA. And then getting in the classroom with Ag Ed 295, Ag Extension Education 295, observing and being active in classrooms a little bit more. And then working on in things in the shop for the first time, actually working with my high school ag teacher in Ag Ed 350 this semester, and taking my first ever shop class with him and Dr. Ewing. We worked in the shop, and then I was able to develop a student project plan. This is the plan I developed, which is an idea I had for personal use, but also it would be something that students could do for under $15 using simple wood materials and tools found in the shop. It's a scarf rack, or could be a tie rack. students would want to use it that way as well. It would be wall mounted. And so that's just a reflection of AGAD 350 this past semester. And of course, 413, looking at what a complete program looks like this semester. And finally, one of the keystone capstone course of my experience, seeing what it looks like to actually teach. AGAD 412 has been very beneficial in providing that perspective. As I mentioned, I have several minors, and I think they were beneficial in any life opportunity, but they did take a little bit away from my content learning in agricultural education. You can see the minors there, and then some certifications that I think were beneficial through the HESI program, Humanitarian Engineering and Social Entrepreneurship. I got to work with students in the College of Engineering, and we actually were working on a local community development project with the West Branch School District, middle school students there and teachers, and then also with Geisinger Medical Center in Danville to develop an indoor living system, which was a very interesting opportunity, time-consuming, but just overall beneficial in terms of the organization and looking at engineering. I mentioned environmental education workshops, and I was able to take a parliamentary procedure class with Dr. Foster and receive community leave instructor certification through AGAD 350. Professional development is something that is ongoing in agricultural education. I was able to attend those workshops I mentioned in environmental education. One of the most beneficial things I've been able to do in college was attend the World Food Prize, which is a conference on global agriculture and food security issues. And so I participated in that through a grant from National FFA in 2011 as a future agricultural educator, as that's a very significant, global competency is a significant area of focus in agricultural education. And then I loved it so much that I paid my way to go again in 2012. It was just really beneficial in seeing a global perspective in how agricultural education is really important on the global scale. And then you can see some different events that I was able to help facilitate as well, including working with my high school ag program, freshmen in the Green Hand Development. And then I was able to help some Puerto Rican students at a livestock judging CE this past national convention as a translator. And then I mentioned global competency a lot. I'll briefly discuss my international experiences. 2012, I spent 6 weeks with Melanie, and I spent 4 weeks with Melanie in the Spanish Ag Sciences program, and stayed in Costa Rica for an additional 2 weeks to do my undergraduate research for my Shire Honors College thesis, which was actually focused on describing agricultural education in local schools in the town that I was in, which was really cool to just be in those schools and see what ag education looks like in another country. This past summer, I was in Costa Rica again for 4 months and in the hot and humid side of the country, studying at Earth University, which is a sustainable agriculture university for students all over the world. It was really awesome, and my courses were in Spanish, and they were focused on technical agriculture and sustainability. And then I'll be leaving for Thailand and Cambodia in 10 days with another course and program through the College of Agricultural Sciences focused on smallholder food security and issues in Southeast Asia. And then, as I'll mention a little bit later, I'll be actually student teaching in Costa Rica this coming spring as part of my student teaching internship. And diverse learner competency, as we talked about diverse populations, I think I relate a lot more to cultural diversity whenever it comes to learner competency, but culture can relate to any type of level in the classroom. So working as a state FFA officer, I was able to facilitate workshops to individuals from inner city Philadelphia and then from individuals from northern McKean County. So there's a lot of diversity in agricultural programs in the state that I got to work with that, which includes learner diversity as well. And then the study abroad experience, there were students from Earth University from all over the world. This picture is a lot of my close friends from the summer, and there's over 7 countries represented just in that picture. So I think that having a cultural diverse perspective is important to bring into the classroom. But there's also learning needs that are very diverse, and so Workforce Ed 413 was very beneficial in looking at special needs for learners in the classroom. So, what's it look like this coming spring to maximize this student teaching internship opportunity to prepare as an agricultural educator? Well, first we need to talk about where I'll be. And I have a map here to show the distance between the 2 places. I'll be at Wellsboro, which is in Tioga County, for 7 weeks, starting on January 20th. And that program has about 100 students with the instructor, the only agricultural science instructor, as Melanie Burnson. She is a National Agri-Science Ambassador and a CASE certified teacher, which is really awesome. She's just a really great person to work with, so I'm excited to be there. And then I'll be in Costa Rica for the last 7 or 8 weeks of my student teaching internship at La Universidad Técnica Nacional, which is the National Technical University, and it offers coursework and programs in agricultural education, animal science programs, plant science programs, but we're still a little unsure as to what that experience will look like. We're looking forward to how that would work out spending some time in Costa Rica. So Wellsboro, just a brief overview of what that program looks like. There's a lot of animal science focus, small animal science in the facilities, and they have some great plant science facilities as well. So Melanie teaches alternating years of plant science and animal science because of the one teacher restriction. Because of their part of the state, there's a significant focus on natural resources. They have a wooded lot. And her SAE program is also diverse from production to placement with about 80% activity level with SAE. This is the chapter FFA president, Tim, and his beef heifers. And the FFA chapter at Wellsboro is the Grand Canyon FFA because it's the home of the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. There's about 50 members, which is about 50% membership for the agri-science program. And they have a lot of strength in forestry and some production areas. There's some of their fundraisers and key events, and I got to travel with them to National FFA Convention, which was really awesome. I got to spend some time with members, which I really enjoyed and got me excited about working with them in the spring. And whenever I look at this center and think about the things that go into having a significant agri-science program, I really think that there's a strong instructor at Wellsboro. Melanie is a wonderful person to work with, and I'm very excited to be there with her experiences and accreditations. They have some pretty significant resources. The school was redone within the last 10 years, and so she was able to get some things out of that, even though she's only been there for 5 or 6 years. And as you can see in area of improvement, she's still kind of organizing things in some curriculum areas. But there's just a lot of successes from this program. And because of the opportunities and the understanding that she has, I think it would be great to have another instructor, as well as 100% SAE, which would come from another instructor supporting that. And then also, there are no shop courses that Melanie currently teaches, but there are some technical education courses that other teachers at the school work with, and one of them is actually helping out with FFA a little bit more. So hopefully that can be more integrated in the agri-science program. Okay, so Costa Rica, again, we're not really sure exactly what's going to be happening. It's been a very interesting program to plan, working with the College of Education at Penn State, who is working with a program in the University of Indiana, who is coordinating with our contact in Costa Rica. This is the first time anyone in agricultural education at Penn State has implemented this system to student teach in another country, so again, very unique. But the plan is hopefully that I'll be assisting with first-year courses at this university, teaching some courses or assisting the instructors that are already there. And I was really excited about doing this and have been trying to plan it for several years now based on my previous Costa Rica experiences, my Spanish-speaking abilities, and just being immersed in the culture. And Costa Rica is beautiful, as you can see here. I have many pictures too, but I'm very excited to be back in the country. So you can look in your program to the master calendar and refer to that. You can see, as I mentioned, there's 7 weeks in Wellsboro, teaching courses, all the units and instructors are listed there. And then as we get to like April and May, it's kind of blank here, as you can see. Again, still unsure, but I'm very excited about what will fill those places in that calendar. You also have the colorful course of study table, which is, I believe, page 3 or page 4 in your handout. And the course of study includes the units I'll be teaching at Wellsboro. The courses that I will be instructing, I'll be instructing all the courses that Melanie currently teaches, which includes the Animal Science 1-2 course, Animal Science 3-4 course, Natural Resource Management 1-2 course, Intro to Agri-Science course, and an FFA and Leadership course. And those are reflected in the colors of the binders over here. You see your colors on your sheet. Light blue, green, white, etc. And these are the units of instruction I'll have, as you can see, nutrition and feeds and livestock digestive systems in Animal Science 2, livestock species and equine science in Animal Science 4, wildlife and fisheries and natural resource management, and then for the entire time with FFA leadership course, because it meets every other day, I'll be doing a communication and public speaking unit. And then Intro to Agri-Science, I mentioned Melanie is case certified, so she received the curriculum for teaching Intro to Agri-Science case curriculum. So I'll just be kind of taking that out and teaching these different units in the case curriculum for this spring. So I mentioned the binders already. The colors respectively relate to the courses, and then here's the units, as you can see in the unit plan. I believe very strongly in organization, and so I am hoping that this is helpful in keeping things together in the spring. In each of these binders, they have the unit plan and unit objectives, in addition to being divided by the units within the course binders. And then within the units, you can see all the unit unit objectives and the course titles in your handout as well. And those are also color-coded for some of the units that are a little more complex. I've broken them down into subunits. For example, Wildlife and Fisheries unit has about 9 subunits. And, 5 subunits. So within the binder, each of these tabs reflects a subunit as well, and the lessons that relate to that, as you can see in your unit plans. So that's something I think will be helpful in keeping the lessons organized as well.
Could you pass one of those around, please?
And then also over here with my binders are a binder I was mentioning earlier, I'm referring to my Penn State binder, or Complete Agricultural Education Program binder, which includes all of the courses, work that related to having a complete program that I mentioned in the first part of my presentation, which includes my philosophy, a program planning handbook, which was a capstone aspect of AE 413, and also an advisory committee selection plan, a officer selection plan, lab management plan, student project plan, and the classroom management plan is also included in there as something to just keep together that vision of an overall agricultural education program. And then I have another binder here that is very helpful in kind of looking at what Wellsboro looks like being there for the 7 weeks. It has all the units, unit plans, and information about the program as well. Something to refer to for my time at Wellsboro. Hopefully I'll have one for my time at Costa Rica soon enough to keep that organized as well. And I'll just move to the computer. Or not. Well, other than the organization that I have, we did see the calendars and the course of study. As I'm only going to be at Wellsboro for 7 weeks in the spring, it was requested of me to have all of my units of instruction with all of my lesson plans, handouts, and materials needed for those 7 weeks of being at Wellsboro by the time I leave for Wellsboro in January. So I will have everything, as opposed to just the first 3 weeks that the other student teachers are required to have. I'll have all of that prepared for my time at Wellsboro so that we can maximize that experience. And as we look at my time, I can just talk. As I reflect back and look forward as to my time in a student teaching capacity and as an agricultural education major, I think, as I mentioned, one of my focus strengths has been a global perspective, something that kind of goes with traveling and also just desiring to be culturally immersed, and hopefully I'll bring that into the classroom in the spring. I mentioned enthusiasm and energy as a strength as well, and that's something I think I've also been able to positively contribute to my cohort this semester, just keeping everyone in a positive mood and encouraging people in times of struggle or workload. Additionally, I mentioned organization, and one of the things I also contributed to my cohort this semester was a method for us to collaborate on lesson plans through Dropbox, which is an online kind of organization system. So that's another thing that I helped out with this semester, or my cohort, and something I can hope to continue with as I go forward. But looking at improvement areas, I think specifically in the classroom, I've noted that while I like keeping things organized, it's been difficult to see how to integrate having a felt need for students and the content that they're learning, and also just maintaining transitions and conclusions to build a better perspective for the student. And I like to talk a lot, as many of you may know, but sometimes my directions cannot be very clear, so that's an improvement area as well. In addition to classroom management, is something that is foundational to being in a classroom and something that I always need to improve on, which will work whenever I actually have real students in front of me. So as I get on the road, whether it be in northern Pennsylvania or the warm tropical valleys of Costa Rica, I know that I've had an outstanding experience here at Penn State as an agricultural and extension education major, a student of the College of Agricultural Sciences, and just being a member of this university as a whole. I'm very thankful for the individuals, not only in this room, my professors, my parents, but just really thankful for the opportunities that have been provided. And I know that, as Winston Churchill once said, you make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. And I know that agricultural education is about giving. I've been given a lot through many of the programs and opportunities. And my mother just being a wonderful support as well. So there's just a lot of giving that's going on. So I'm hoping to reflect that and give a lot back as I go forward and be a lifelong agricultural educator. Thank you very much.
Round of applause for Allison. At this time, we'll enter into the public questioning period. We will take questions from the teacher education panel and from the audience, and we'll alternate. And I will start with the first question. Allison, I'd like for you to back that PowerPoint up to your personal reflection slide that showed your strep test. And I want you to identify one of those key improvement areas that you have listed. And as a developing educator, working towards mastery, I want you to tell me specifically what is your action plan to improve that one of those areas. What are you specifically going to do as you enter your internship to address that concern?
Definitely. I kind of clumped the felt need, transitions, and conclusions and instructional directions, but I think that these two are very significant, keeping organized in the classroom and reflecting upon how you're maintaining the smoothness and transition within the class. Having a wonderful agri-science educator at Wellsboro to be able to observe and give positive feedback, I will definitely be utilizing Melanie in my classroom experiences as we reflect upon instructionalist times weekly. And also just maintaining the clarity in my lesson plans and unit plans in terms of transitions and how important they are to not only have in the lesson plan but state to the students something that I will need to revise as I go forth and prepare every single lesson plan before I give it that day.
So I want you to be very specific. You mentioned first consulting with Melanie.
Supervision and feedback from
And so how will you do
instructor.
that?
We will be meeting weekly.
So once a week, you're going to sit down and talk about the previous week's instruction.
Yes, sir. That is part of the curriculum for the internship.
Do you think that once a week is enough?
I will probably ask her on a more informal basis how she believes I did for the day or for even the class period if we have the time to discuss it. Because like I mentioned, she's an outstanding educator and I really do appreciate her feedback.
And then for the content transitions and directions, specifically, how are you going to do that?
I will be very sure that whenever I look over my lesson plans the day before instructing them, after they're already developed, and I have been previously looking at putting those instructions in, the day before I give that lesson, I will make sure that my directions and transitions are very clearly stated and even highlighted if I think that they're extremely significant in that lesson.
So you'll script out those thoughts.
Mhm.
Thank you. Is there a question from the audience? Annette?
Hi, Allison. I'm looking at your model course of study, and comparing that to your philosophy, I see that you believe in 100% SAE integration as well as 100% FFA integration.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering what you see as a benefit of having SAE, FFA as a separate course from your other courses offered.
These are just integrated in terms of a credit load. As many programs in the state do, they can have an independent credit for SAE, FFA. I don't have any hours listed in this course of study, but as I mentioned, SAE and FFA will be integrated into the coursework and requirements of each individual course. So I guess this is improperly displayed as an independent course, but it will be integrated in every course in terms of grading.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Ewing?
Well, you know my love for food, so I'll start with lunch detention. Tell me about lunch detention and your classroom opportunities and consequences. Where did that come from, and tell me how that works?
That is directly from the student handbook for the Wellsboro Area High School.
Okay.
And so I mentioned earlier on, it's a level 1 violation for disciplinary action, along with a verbal warning and a few other things that are kind of more simple in terms of discipline. But I listed it just because detention sounds like a nasty word, and I think that students would have to be sitting in a different area during their lunch period as opposed to being with their students or in the office. I'm not 100% sure where that detention would take place during the lunch period, but during a 30-minute lunch period, they would be receiving that discipline.
Okay, and I guess the point or the question that I had underlying that is you as the teacher are not responsible to oversee that.
No, that is a school
Okay,
discipline.
all right.
Judy? Question from the audience. Carly?
As someone who has gone lunch detention before, it's not very fun. So I can relate. Anyway, what are you most excited to experience? I'm assuming Costa Rica, but what's the one thing you're really looking forward to?
In general, I'm just very excited about being in the classroom and being in that instructor's role. For so long I thought that I was like, oh yeah, I've got those teacher genes, like I'll be great, but just seeing what it takes to be a really positive educator and the preparation that goes into it, I'm excited to take the things that I've learned here and actually be in the classroom and create that student rapport, which is mentioned in my philosophy, with the students, just to have an overall teaching experience. I'm just excited to see what that looks like over a little bit more of a long term.
Thank you. Ms. Rice?
Allison, what do you foresee as being your biggest challenge student teaching at Wellsboro?
At Wellsboro, I don't know, I'm really excited. There's a lot of positives. The snow, no, I'm just kidding. I think that one of the biggest challenges in general is classroom management, and because I'm not 100% familiar with the students I'll be with, I don't know exactly how I'll be able to handle them in the classroom. But if I go in starting out with a strong rapport and relationship with the students and having those consequences visible in my expectations, I think that's something that can be easily averted. But I do appreciate the students that I do know at Wellsboro already, and I'm hoping that there won't be much of a problem with classroom management.
Audience?
Yes. I'd like to follow up on that with that question. What do you think the biggest challenge will be in Costa Rica?
That's a very good question. We've been working on this experience over the past year, I think. We made initial contact with the program planning for Costa Rica about a year ago. And one of the biggest challenges thus far, which is, I had it in the slide, but didn't really talk about it, is just the level of preparation and communication. As I mentioned, we're working through the College of Education, who's working through contact the University of Indiana, who has the contact for all of the countries that this global gateway program works through for short-term student teaching abroad. So just that, like, the chain of communication has been very difficult to work with, and also not being able to communicate with the individuals I'm working with, and not even really knowing who they'll be completely in terms of a cooperating teacher has been very difficult as well. And then you know very much about Costa Rican time and planning, and I think that in general our program is very much efficient in planning ahead for the year ahead, but in Costa Rica it's like the opposite. So it's just very interesting to see that I won't really know much of what my content will be or any more details in general until January 1st, let alone the week before I get there. So it's just a different time frame in terms of mentality, preparing for an agricultural student teaching experience.
What is the difference between community service and service learning?
Community service is something that I think anyone can be engaged in, whether it's, you go out and you help at a food bank. So that's very reflective of a student organization I was involved in with the YMCA. We did a lot of community service where people just went out and did stuff. Service learning is taking that either into the classroom or being in the community and then adding an educational component about how the student is involved in that setting, learning from it, and then either applying content that they already have to that service opportunity or bringing that service opportunity back into the classroom to apply it to content that's being learned in the classroom.
Thank you. Audience? Dr. Hoover?
Where will you be integrating record keeping for the SAEs into your program?
Into my model program?
How does Wellsboro do it, and then how would you do it down the road?
Wellsboro is working under the AET program, and so Melanie has given me access to look at that and reflect on some of the student SAEs, but I haven't had much time to look at it. But record keeping is very important. However, I don't want it to be something that gets in the way of looking at what an SAE is in general. Going through my agricultural education experience, I think it was very much pointed to record keeping and not to the overall educational experience of SAE. So I think it's secondary to focusing on 100% involvement of student SAE, as they not only choose it, but they self-evaluate it, but they do need to maintain their records, which is a part of the course grading at Wellsboro. There is a 10% grading for SAE within all of their courses in their syllabi.
Will it be part of the instructional plans during class at Wellsboro
To teach record keeping?
to provide opportunity to develop SAEs?
The opportunity that I've been providing in my lesson planning has been to show SAE opportunities, or if there is additional time in class to discuss how the SAE relates to the curriculum at the moment. However, I don't believe in using a classroom instructional time for a course such as wildlife, ecosystem, and management to teach about record keeping skills, especially with a system as proficient as the AET for self-instruction.
Really?
So where do they learn to do the AET and do records? And keep records?
I know that Melanie has worked on that in their Agri-Science 1 course in terms of the beginning of the year, especially if they need to start their record keeping then. That's not something that has been identified as something for me to be doing with the students halfway through the year, let alone.
So let's step back from Wellsboro and talk about your future program.
My future program will be different. I would probably implement a program such as the AET to maintain that record keeping and the student access throughout the year. And I think it is important to instruct on how to use it, but not to be constantly going back to it throughout the year. It would be one of the initial.
If you think about overlapping of the 3 circles, you don't think it's appropriate to provide in-class time to an expectation of a third of your program?
I think it is important, but I don't think it would be something that would just be randomly placed into a unit, for example. I think it should be integrated.
Maybe every other Friday we could keep records.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ewing?
Yeah, so I have one question here. So you mentioned that in your laboratory management implementation plan, that you're going to require 100% on safety quizzes, and your little picture there shows me why, because we don't want to lose any body parts, etc. Yeah, tell me how you're going to follow that through and implement it and have evidence that each student did successfully earn a 100% on the safety quizzes prior to engaging in using the equipment, let's say. Per se, you have a student that
Does not receive 100%.
yeah, on the first go round, the second go round, the
Yeah,
third
that's
go
part of my
round.
plan. So the first round, if they do not receive 100%, they have to wait a day of sitting out of the laboratory. And if they not receive 100% on the second day of taking the quiz, the third day they'll be able to use their notes, so that they're not missing all that instructional time in the laboratory. But we do want to make sure that they understand the safety regulations before entering into the lab.
Okay, thank you.
Cassidy, do you have a question?
Yeah. So you had mentioned that some of your strengths are like food science, international ag, agroecology, etc. In both Wellsboro and your future program, how are you going to address any aspects where you might have a weakness? Let's say your students want to go and explore something else. How are you going to help supplement their knowledge?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. And I think of something that you're interested in, plant science. That's not something that I have a lot of strength in. But I think it's very important, especially because of the career opportunities in plant science for many of our students as they enter into the workforce or in post-secondary education. There's a lot of opportunities in plant science as we focus on global agriculture. But knowing the resources that are available, not only from textbooks, but from online communities in curriculum areas, there's a lot of different resources for that. And then just having the connections I do at the university. My father works in plant science. At the university level, there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate and look at instructional content area. But content area shouldn't be the main concern or fear whenever looking at what students should need in their educational experience. So I wouldn't be afraid of pursuing new areas that I'm not familiar with as I prepare for my future program.
And for our last question, for you, Allison, how do you plan to leave the woodpile higher?
One of the things I think has been really beneficial in this whole international education experience, as we look at global competency, it's not only a goal of students in secondary education, but also our students here in this building. And so this program has been promoting international experiences and global experiences study abroad to the ag education majors. But hopefully the time in Costa Rica and additional work that I'll be doing there and following up with it here, I'm hoping to build a template or an outline as to how a student in the agricultural education program could perform part of their student teaching experience abroad. So maybe just a format for future use, any students that have that interest.
Thank you very much. A round of applause, Mr. Thank you all for coming. We invite you to partake of the refreshments in the hall, and goodbye.